Well, today, a racist con man who owes the state of New York $464 million told New York State's first African-American attorney general, his words, "Keep your filthy hands off Trump Tower." Of course, because racist Donald Trump is also coward Donald Trump, he would not dare say that directly to the attorney general. Instead, he said it to his followers online in another desperate request for their money. In his unhinged post, here it is, we printed it out, Donald Trump says, "Insane, radical Democrat Attorney General Letitia James wants to seize my properties in New York. This includes the iconic Trump Tower exclamation point." There it is, right there. Okay. A couple of things about Trump Tower. There's nothing iconic about it. It is a plain and boring-looking office building with mixed use, including some apartments in Midtown Manhattan, that looks like every other plain, boring office building. No, get those pictures down. That's not Trump Tower. Do not put up those pictures. Those are iconic buildings. Don't put those up when we're talking about Trump Tower. Trump Tower looks like every other boring box that surrounds it in Midtown Manhattan. Iconic buildings in New York, of course, include the Empire State Building, the Chrysler Building, there they are, whose profiles are known around the world. And there are dozens of architecturally important, beautiful buildings, not quite as famous worldwide as the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building, including the Flatiron Building and many others. Trump Tower, so-called, will never be on a list of iconic or important buildings in New York. And Trump Tower is not a tower by New York City standards. There are over 100 buildings in Manhattan taller than Donald Trump's building that he calls a tower. You can't pick out Trump Tower from an airplane landing at a New York airport or from anywhere else in New York. The only way you know you're looking at Trump Tower is if you're standing right in front of it and seeing that name on the building. That building is going to be torn down someday, like most of the buildings around it, and replaced by a better building. And no one will miss it. On Monday, Donald Trump will run out of time to come up with the money that would allow him to protect his assets from seizure while he is appealing the $464 million civil judgment against him for business fraud in New York State. Telling the Attorney General to keep her hands off Trump Tower sounds like Donald Trump doesn't think he's going to be able to come up with the money that would prevent the Attorney General from putting a lien on that building. And if that's the case, we are about to find out how much of that building Donald Trump actually owns, if any. Because as of Tuesday of next week, Attorney General Letitia James might be going full speed ahead in the process of eventually possibly forcing the sale of Trump properties in order to pay the judgment Donald Trump owes the state of New York. Andrew Weissman will join us in a moment to discuss that process. That means the next few days and the coming weekend will be the most financially desperate days of Donald Trump's life so far, with surely many more such desperate financial days to come. Today, a group called the National Security Action, which was co-founded by President Obama's Deputy National Security Advisor Ben Rhodes, issued a white paper describing the security risk that Donald Trump's financial situation now poses. National security professionals have long maintained that large personal debts present a significant counterintelligence risk for those with access to classified information. Notably, Donald Trump's debts rise far above what security and counterintelligence officials find concerning for most government servants, let alone a commander-in-chief. His debts are hardly the only source of concern. His well-established track record of recklessly sharing classified information and use of the presidential office for personal gain demonstrates his willingness to prioritize his own personal profits above the safety of Americans. Experts have also highlighted telltale signs of vulnerability to foreign influence, including erratic behavior, severe financial strain, and anger towards the United States government, all qualities exhibited by Donald Trump. Simply put, Donald Trump's unique and perilous financial situation presents real vulnerabilities for U.S. national security.